Okay, I think I got on Facebook. I'm recording. I think Mike will be happy with this. So thanks for joining me today. So Mike and I were just talking, last week and trying to figure out what topic without him would like to do. And this topic today is something I've talked to every day, all day long with agents, is about what's happening in real estate, buyer's agency, listing commissions, those lawsuits happening with National Association of Realtors, and then the market in general, several times a day. I don't know. I have calls every half hour, and the half hour usually by 9 in the morning till at least 9 at night with mostly our agents at Century 21 Homestar, and going over just business building, planning, kind of what I'm doing here, but more one-on-one on that. So I figured, this is the topic I talk about every day. So I'm just going to throw out some ideas and opinions and things going. So my disclaimer, of course, is these are my opinions. I'm not an attorney, but being a broker for 25 years and seeing changes in markets and agency relationships and commission structures and things like that. And of course, if I throw out any percentages or numbers, this is not something that is required, or it's all just suggested. Because anytime I have meetings with other brokers, like when we have broker owner meetings with Century 21, they always have to stand up first. They have Century 21 Corporation has their a legal representative there and has a disclaimer saying that we cannot talk about commissions. We're not supposed to be, it's not price fixing or any of that, because that's part of what's going on with the lawsuits that are happening. If you see, is that they think that we price fix and forcing people to pay certain commissions, which of course my take is completely false. So, but I'll say topic one today, the prediction of real estate this year. So I see it with our own company. Like last year overall, the last 2 years nationwide, the real estate market has been down about 18% each year. But you know, of course, being the news and what people hear and see, they didn't see, well, what happened the year before? Well, the market in general came up like 30 to 40% in 1 year. So my opinion of having a company is that we're normalizing back to a normal amount of transactions, more normalizing. The last 2 years was just all market driven, the increase. It wasn't because the interest rates came down dramatically. It wasn't because the economy just skyrocketed. It wasn't because, especially in Ohio, talk about the Ohio market, it wasn't like some type of huge corporation like Amazon or something happened where everybody started moving into Ohio, and our real estate should be booming because something happened in the whole state. It was just a market frenzy of people, and a lot of us saw that because of the amount of interest, or the amount of multiple offers, and people still buying houses when interest rates were coming up, and the lack of inventory. So what I express this year is going to be kind of the same as last year. It might come up a little bit in general, but and you've heard Mike and I say this, it's all individual to agents. If someone says, example, 18% down, let's say just round that up to 20%. If you have 10 sales a year as an agent, having two less sales, if you were the average, is not going to kill your business. You're still in business. And not to take a step back, if a lot of you saw, I came out with some numbers. I went through just the Northeast Ohio, our MLS Now in Northeast Ohio, and went through all the numbers in there. And over 50%, close to 60% of agents in the MLS had less than 5 transactions last year. So 4 or less. 25% had 1 or nothing. And that is low, because I took those numbers about a week and a half ago, when a lot of agents already got out of the MLS. They're either taking a break, they didn't pay their dues at the end of the year, or didn't pay their dues the first couple weeks of the month. So that's actually low there. And then the top 80%, or I would say I'll run that up, 85% of agents don't have more than 12 to 15 sales a year. So if you have 10, 12, 15 sales a year, you're in the top 85, percent. And it's that 80-20 rule. Then it's that 15% that have more than those sales. So I explained to agents, because a lot of agents I talk to every day go, oh, I only had 6 sales last year. Yeah, you're not retiring off that, but you did better than half the agents that are licensed out there. So, and I'll do this other disclaimer, because a lot of brokers, owners hate when I say this. This is a business that agents can do more part-time, full-time, alongside other things. And there's great agents out there that are doing 5, 6, 7, 8 transactions a year. And I feel, not to sound like an old man, is 53. I don't think I'm an old man, but when it comes to real estate, being in it 30 years, I feel like I tell people I could have the history of the knowledge of knowing what consumers in real estate have been wanting. So when I tell agents this is the best time to be in real estate as a real estate agent, this is the reason, is that 30 years ago when I got in the business, you had to be full-time. You had to sit at the office because people were calling your office, and you better be there to answer your phone, because you didn't have a cell phone, or you did have a cell phone, it was in your car, unless you want to sit in your car all day. You had to sit in the office. And people back then, there was no side businesses for today's day. You talk to everybody, like everybody's got their hand in something, like I do this and I do this and I do that. I think the younger generation even more, having 2 kids and that are in their 20s and 2 in high school, I could see their eye when we talk about business and their jobs and things. They're always talking about what else are they going to do, not just because they're not going to live and breathe off of just one 9 to 5 job. They're going to try to find some side gig, as they refer to it as. So I think today's day and age, more consumers are okay with agents that have other things. They could have another business, a hair salon. They could be an attorney and sell real estate. They could be an accountant. They could do this. They have a lot of people that do that. So the consumers are okay with that. So my opinion and what I see is that there's more part-time agents. So I talk to agents every day, is that I stress to them that, especially the agents that have been in the business, like so many conversations I had agents with that have been in the business many, many years. They go, oh, good, there's going to be a downturn in the market. There's going to be less part of these part-timers out there, and they're going to get out of the business, and it'll be more business for us as full-time agents. I go, it's never going to happen. I've never seen it happen, and it's never going to happen. It's just, especially in today's consumers, the way they look at it, they're okay with it. So there's going to be people, especially with the TV shows and the fix and flip shows, everybody's talking. If you're going to have a job and you want to make extra money doing something else, it's always about real estate, right? It's everybody's trying to get into real estate, because that's what every show is. No one's saying, hey, if you want to make some money on the side, why don't you get your become a lawyer and be a lawyer on the side, or an accountant on the side, or invest in something. Maybe every once in a while you'll see someone's like, why don't you be a day trader and trade stocks or something? Well, you need a lot of money for that. But what kind of business can someone get into on the side, so to say? And it's real estate. So the point I'm getting at in the topic I was just explaining, is that if you are in it and you're doing just a few transactions a year and you're doing a good job, I compare it to like having someone that walks into a fancy restaurant and there's only 3 tables there and they're only open for dinner. Do you think that they're not doing a good job? I have very good agents that sell 3, 4, 5 houses, and that's all they want. They do an excellent job. They work with one client at a time, kind of like a boutique restaurant. Say we want to give you great service and all of that. So I don't see that going away. So that's my prediction of real estate for this year, is the part-time agents, or the agents who are not going away. And also there's companies like myself and our company, if you didn't know this already, if you're an agent with us, we do have a holding company. We have another separate company just for referrals. So this is the first year we have more agents that we ever had in that, because a lot of agents are like, well, I'm not doing much. If we're really not doing much at all, you could go into the referral company. And what a referral company is that your license stays in an active status, but you can't show houses, you can't list houses, you're not in the MLS, you're not a realtor, you're a real estate agent, and you could legally talk to people and advise them. But when they want to buy a house, see houses or list a house, they have to go with a agent that's in the MLS and as a realtor, and then you could earn a referral fee, usually 25% on that. So we do that to help our agents out, because just to keep your foot in the door. And there's some agents that do very well with that. They just do referrals because they have other things going on in life. They retire, they're slowing down. So that's another option. So there's more companies, large companies like I said, are promoting those to keep agents' foot in the door, to keep out there. Also, my prediction is we never want, as a real estate industry, my opinion, it's kind of like Starbucks. Starbucks doesn't mind putting like 5 different coffee shops in within a mile radius. They just want to see they fall across a Starbucks as soon as possible, because they know if someone doesn't fall across a Starbucks, they're just going to go to another, the next easiest coffee shop. So where I hope that we keep as agents, we don't need 1.5 million realtors, but I think we hope we keep at least 1 million realtors around the country, because we don't, if all of a sudden some consumers have a hard time finding an agent or figuring out how to get a hold of agent, and there's not agents calling them, and signs and yard signs with the realtors' names and ads in the paper and their church bulletin, and then there might be something out there someday, don't know what it would be, that people go to. Well, I can't really find a realtor, I don't see a realtor, I don't even know who a realtor is, I don't see any advertising. So I see all of us, I tell agents, my opinion is that the more people we have, the more advertising we have as realtors, realtor here, realtor there, realtor this. Everywhere we go, there's a realtor ad, or they're getting something in the mail, or they're seeing something. It promotes real estate agents that help all of us and keep our industry strong. So that's another prediction I have, is that that's going to continue that way. Now, the next topic I get into is about, I like to talk about like histories of commissions and why we're in this place right now where our commissions are questioned. And I'm trying to say this as legalese as possible. One thing I'll say to this, I saw it happening a little bit, is that when I got in real estate for many, many years, there was no such thing as buyers agents commissions. What it was is that as a real estate company, in our listing agreements we had, is that we are charging you, Mr. or Mrs. Seller, this. But by happenstance, if a buyer's agent came in with a buyer, we would split or give them part of our commission to them, because they are going to be doing the job of helping the buyer. Oh yes, Mr. or Mrs. Seller, if there is no buyer's agent, the buyer comes to us directly, you are still paying the same amount of commission. You're not getting a break, because now I have to do the work of 2 agents. I have to help the buyer, be there for the inspections, check on their financing, show them the house when they want to go there and bring their whole family. And I've got to be there, and I got to help them through the contract and wear the sign and all of that. So there was we didn't have this situation years ago, and for many years, is because there was no divide in commission. They're like, I pay you, you pay that, seller pays them. There's just a gross commission, and we are, as listing agents, going to share that because they are doing the work. This is another thing, and I'm going to go off on a few different tangents. Sometimes the agents call me at least once or twice a week. I'm on the phone with the agent. I go, oh, I have this listing. This buyer comes in. I'm a dual agent. I go, no, you're not a dual agent automatically. If you don't know that buyer, you're not a dual agent. So who's going to work for the buyer? I go, you work for the buyer. Like, well, I represent the buyer. No, you work for the buyer. So there's a difference between work and represent. So example, when I tell our listing agents, well, when they get me on the phone, not all the time, but I explain to them when the buyer calls off your sign or wants to see the house, you give them a consumer guide, explain to them you work for this, you represent the seller, but if you want to when you see the house, if you want to write an offer, I work for you. I don't represent you. I won't look out for your best interest. I'm representing the seller. I'm looking out for their best interest. And the easiest way to explain that to a buyer is that, listen, just don't tell me anything you don't want the seller to know, because I represent them. I'm trying to get them the best price for the house. I'll be happy to submit the offer for you, but remember, I am a representative of them. And most buyers will get, I don't care. They're not going to tell you anyways. And they don't trust you anyways. They know, they almost kind of, most of them know that you work for the seller. They're not going to come in and go, wow, this house is 200,000. I would pay 250 for it tomorrow. Don't say stuff like that to me as a listing agent. I'm going to go back to the seller. And also most sellers, my opinion is, if you explain to them to be a dual agent, that now I'm not going to be looking out for your best interest. I'm going to be a neutral party. So if I become a dual agent, hey, if that buyer brings in an offer and they say to me, oh my gosh, let's go in at 150, but we pay 225. Now that I'm a dual agent, I can't tell you that. And what would most sellers say if you explain that to them? Like, I don't want you to be a dual agent. I want to know everything you know about these buyers. If they're pre-approved for 400,000 and they told you they have 300,000 cash in the bank, and your house is worth is on the market for 200. I want that top, they're well qualified. I want to negotiate the best price for me. So I think we get into duals agency situations without really, I don't know, the buyer and seller sign the documents, but explaining to them that. Also, why I was going down that road is because we don't do it enough with commissions, and that's the problem we are in, is that most commissions are that a seller knows it's just really what's on the listing agreement. And we didn't really, I mean, they just so many agents and so many companies got out of really explaining to listing agents how to explain commissions to sellers. And a lot of sellers, the listing agent, go, well, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, because it's just the way it is. We have to pay buyer just because. They never explained it got way out of hand, in my opinion. That's why it got so far, is that we stopped training, we stopped having agents to explain. And I've had many conversations, not recently, but when all the lawsuits came out, I would just put agents on the spot, say, okay, you got 5 minutes of my time. I'm a seller. Tell me all the great things buyers agents do and why we should compensate them. And some of them are like, I'm not sure. They just show the house, or they just write contracts, and they represent the buyer in their best interest. And you want that, and how that helps you as a listing or as a seller. All of these buyers agents represent the buyers, but they're helping you sell your house. So not just one buyer's agent, all the buyer's agents that show your house. So I could go on for 3 hours of all the buyer's agents, the advantages of buyer's agents and what helps sellers. I actually got to the point, because I haven't posted it yet, because Brenda and I, my partner, have been working on this, because we've sat down and gone over list after list of all the advantages of buyer's agents. Honestly, we've gotten to the point where, like, we're almost putting the listing agent out of business. We're putting so many things, just kind of like when you go for a listing appointment, all the things, this is Mr. or Mrs. So we're going to do, we're going to market here, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, this is what you're hiring me to do. And then all of a sudden the buyer's agent list got just as long or even longer. And we're like, some seller might go, well, wow, if you keep on saying all of that, the buyer's agent's more important than the listing agent. So we almost got to that point, like, okay, we got to pare this down. So to all my agents that are watching that, because some of them would ask, like, where's that list that you said you're going to come out with all the good why if a seller tells us, hey, I don't want to pay a buyer's agent, where's that list? You were going to say me all the good. I'm like, well, we're kind of making sure we don't oversell it too much, because it might diminish what you do as a listing agent, if that makes some sense. So I think the lawsuits are going to continue. I just had a Zoom 2 weeks ago with other Century 21 brokers and owners that they put together that were in different markets. They brought us together to just give us some tips from other areas because of the lawsuits coming in and how to handle sellers and companies that are putting in the MLS no compensation, or sellers that don't want to pay compensation to buyers agents. But so it was really good. I didn't think I would take this much out of it, but there are they had broker and owners in other states that were there, and it says this doesn't change anything we do. We've been doing it this way forever. What I mean by that, what have they been doing is, and what I see my prediction of happening soon is more buyers agreements. There's certain states that require buyers agreements, and in their buyers agreements, the buyer's agent explaining how they get paid. And when in the contract with the buyer's agent, the buyer's agent doesn't care what the seller's doing. So if the seller, what I mean by that, in the buyer's agreement, they're writing in there, this is Mr. or Mrs. Buyer, this is how you're paying me. If we're going to ask the seller to compensate me. And it's been done this way in commercial markets all of the time from decades. So I read a few articles that commercial companies say very similar thing. They have a buyer, they're looking for commercial property, and their buyer agreement says that we as a buyer are going to ask the seller to compensate my buyer's agent X, whatever it is, whatever they agree to. And you as a buyer's agent explain to your buyer, this is what I'm worth, and give them all this. This is all the things I'm going to do for you. And this is why we're asking you to ask sellers. So they don't care. The buyer's agent doesn't care. Oh, wow. And we're going to show a house and they say they're going to offer 1%, they're 2%, 3%. Another thing that I just learned this about 4 years ago. I always thought, it was part of our ethics that whatever's in the MLS as buyer's agent, that's what we have to accept. That is false. I did not know this. So I tell this in 30 years in the business, I thought we only had to take what they were offering. That is not true. So if you ever need to talk one-on-one about this, you can. But as professional, I tell agents, not ethically, but professionally, when it was a fair compensation, it would, it's me as a seller going, look, this is, and a listing agent, I'm giving you, this is the fair compensation that I want to give your buyer's agent. And 99 times out of 100, most buyer's agent would say, oh, that's fair. And I'm not going to muddy up the deal and ask for more commission. But if it's not fair to you, or it's not how much you would charge your buyer for your services, just throwing out numbers, is that say you have a buyer agreement with your buyer, said you were going to make sure the seller pays 3% and to me for my services, and the MLS are only offering 1. It's not a dead deal. You just explain when you present your offer to the listing agent, hey, listing agent, just want to let you know I have a buyer agreement with my buyer. We will that they pay me 3%. So in the contract, it's going to be 3%. And I say this because it's going to, I think these are the things that are going to start happening in the future, soon to be, and explain that to the buyer, the seller's agent, the listing agent, that it's non-negotiable. Because sometimes if you throw it in there, because I've talked to many agents like, well, this one's offering 1, this one 2, and I want 3, and I have an agreement with 3. Well, you got to explain that to the listing agent. They have to explain to your seller it's non-negotiable. The buyer or the deal's dead. But that's where some training comes involved, in having an actual conversation with the listing agent, educating them of this is what's happening and it's okay to do it. Because I've been on phone with several listing agents, some of our own, some with other companies, explaining, no, it's okay to do it this way. This is how I think the market's going to change with commissions. And you're going to have to negotiate that, just like closing costs. Yes, and of course, the first thing age says is that, yes, is it going to be hard sometimes on multiple properties, multiple offers? Yes, but it's just like anything else. If it's a $200,000 property in this one, someone's bringing in saying, I'll pay 200 and I need 4,000 for closing costs. And then someone puts in an offer 200,000, I need $4,000 to pay my buyer's agent. It's net the same. It's just part of the offer. So in that Zoom I was telling you about with other broker and owners, across the country with Century 21 was that that's what's happening in other markets. So before when these losses came, it doesn't affect us. If all of a sudden the seller don't want to pay anything or a nickel, or they want to pay 3%, they want to pay 1%, they don't care. I mean, they care because it makes it easier, but they go in there and they already have it negotiated with the buyer to make sure they get paid. Also, they go off on some more tangents here. I feel that you're gonna have to do it this way because you're gonna have to have buyer's agreements, and I pray and hope that the state of Ohio, like other states, make it required so everybody has to do it. Kind of like this. We all have to sign listing agreements. And then the consumers know this is how we're going to charge you commission. It's still, I mean, for all these decades I've been in real estate, it's still feel unfair for buyer's agents, and I'm sure all of you agree with this, is that you as a buyer's agent go out there not knowing if you're ever going to get paid. You never know. That's the risk you take. And then why we don't have buyer's agreements all the time, because what's the first thing an agent tells me? Like, what, I'm scared to sign a buyer's agreement with a buyer because they'll just find another agent that won't sign a buyer's agreement with them, and then I'll lose a buyer. That's why. Imagine if we weren't legally required to have listing agreements. We had the same problem. If you go into one listing agreement, well, I'm not signing an agreement with you to sell my house. I'm just going to list my house with this company because they don't require me to sign a listing agreement. So as the Division of Real Estate in our state, we just have to get to that point like they're doing in other states. And I think they will. I think they will get to that point because just like agency, it took years. A lot of you have been in the business quite a while, but you're living with that consumer guide to agency form, and the current agency form that we have now, that wasn't even existed when I got into real estate. Guess what? When I got into real estate, we all represented sellers. There was no buyer representation. I'm not going to go back. So things do change. We didn't represent every time. Everything was a sub agency. When I had a buyer, I would technically legally tell a buyer, I don't represent you. I know you. You're even my own cousin. I'm showing you houses, but I don't represent you. I'm a sub agent of the seller, and I look out for a seller's best interest legally, the way the contracts are all written and the agency's all written. And I don't even know them. So it took years for me to kind of understand, because things didn't change. Finally, they changed. They say this is best for the consumer. It's best for everybody. And I think the exact same thing is going to happen with buyers agency. It's going to hopefully get to the point where it's required, which is basically saying you're hiring me as your buyer's agent, just like you're hiring me as your listing agent. And this is what you, or how I'm going to get compensated. And for a period of time, like you have a listing for 3 months or 6 months, or you have that. So, geez, time's flying by. So, that's my prediction, but I'll jump right into the other prediction of just numbers wise. I think this year is going to be about the same or a little bit better than last year. I do think there's pent up. You can't go this long with a inventory shortage, right? It's just, you can't go this long. Something's going to crack. It's something, and it's going to be more inventory. So the good news, I say, sometime in the future, could be this year, could be next year, ever, there's going to be an influx of a lot of inventory. I know this because there's been times, I mean, I've been in the business where it's been an extreme buyer's market, where there's too many houses for sale. I remember there was a time early in my career, we'd take listings minimum. My managers at the time would not 6 months. They say, you do not take it less than 6 months, because it's going to take 4 or 5 months to sell the house. Nothing wrong. It's just a normal market. It just takes that amount of time. So it's going to get to that point, because you can't go in an extreme market forever. It's just cyclical. So people are going to retire. People are going to move. I still think there's pent up thoughts about COVID. What I mean by that is there's more, I know it's a few years past COVID, and there's a lot more people working from home. I think that people are going to move around more eventually because they know they can. So many times people stayed in the cities they were in or where they in, just I'll say Cleveland, so many times, people, years ago my company moved me from the west side to the east side. Now I don't want to drive in traffic. I want to move to the east side now. And I know people live one side of town because it's within a certain miles of driving to work. I haven't seen too much of that yet. And I think more and more is going to happen. People are going to maybe not stay in their house 7 to 10 years like they normally did because their jobs can move around. People are going to have different jobs or different things that are working remotely. So they're not stuck in a certain area. Also, I don't know this 100%. I'm not an expert in families, but it seems, I mean, with 4 kids, I have 4 kids that they're not talking about how many kids they're going to have and where they're going to live and where their kids are going to go to school. Like I did when I was in my 20s, like, oh, where am I going to get married? Where am I going to have kids? Where am I going to live? Where are they going to go to school? They're not talking about that. They're talking about moving. All 4 of my kids are talking about living somewhere else, not living in Cleveland and other places and other parts of the state or whatever. So I think the younger generation are going to be more people that move. And if they move to places that are not big, high rentals, it's not like New York City or somewhere else where everything's a rental. They're going to have to buy for the short period of time they will, and they see that owning is better than renting, and they don't want to live in a area that's just apartments. They want to live in a house, and they're going to in certain areas, and especially I know in Ohio, you have to buy if you want to live in this city and you want this area and you want to live in a house and not in an apartment, you're going to have to buy because there's not that many rentals. You're going to have to buy and put some roots down for a while. So I see that happening more in the future too. And last I'll say, and I went over the time, is that we're definitely going to, my opinion is always have a job as realtors. There's nothing that, like I said earlier, there's nothing that I could see that's going to take away what we do. It's not some, sometimes you see a company or something that says, we're like the Uber of real estate, or we're like the Amazon of real estate. There's nothing. This is a people person business. People want representation, with someone to help them, someone to talk to. There's not going to be some technology that's going to take over what we do. And again, 95% of people use realtors to sell a house. I don't care what's happening in the economy. I don't care what's happening in the lawsuits. I don't care what's happening. Interest rates, they're still going to want, when 95% of the people use a realtor, I don't see anything coming to take that down to 0 or half. I don't know. I don't know if it's technology or some type of thing. I don't think, and I think that we're very secure in that aspect. But again, please, I know I went on about a couple different things here, but please reach out to me directly. Text me at 216-374-1269. I can set up some time and go one-on-one. I'd love to talk all day long. And if some agents, I keep a list of cancellations, like, hey, Tony, if you have time today, and every once in a while I have cancellation, and I'll fit you in. If I go more than a half hour without talking to someone, I feel unwanted. So I fill it in. So, all right, that's it. Thanks for watching today. Have a great week, and me and Mike will be back next week. Bye-bye.